Hello and welcome to part 6 of the Creating the Crafting Interface, a live coding session for Runes of Aereal. So in the past 5 videos we've seen how to create this interface where we can, at the left hand side, select a healing book or a book of shields or an energetics book, one of those books here we've got in our inventory, and once we selected one we see the ingredients of the spell book here at the right hand side and what it delivers, in this case an energize scroll. And when we drag an item like this one here, we can drop it onto a one of these boxes, and if it's not correct then it is going to turn red. So far so good. Now in this video I'm going to change a couple of things. The first thing that really annoys me here is that when I start dragging it around, it appears after some other items on the screen. See, like after this little label here, after the caterpillar, and also it disappears after the overlay here. And that's something I really don't want. So in order to fix that, I'm going to move it into another layer while I'm dragging. I'm going to move it into a layer which is on top of this scroll overlay. This scroll overlay layer is the layer on which this overlay thing is situated. So let me just fix all of that, and then we can see that this black book background, I don't know where we can fix that here. Lock that selection please, and also lock this selection please, and this overlay here, this is what we're talking about. There's a hole in it, and this is really blocking the side of the thing that's going to be dragged. So it's appearing under it because the thing that's being dragged is being spawned on the content layer, and the scroll overlay is really on top of it. So to fix that, I'm going to add another layer above here, and it's going to be drag overlay. No, drag layer, for example. Drag layer, whatever. That's good. And now we can go to the interaction here of this scrolling interface, and we already have drag drop. We have an is dragging, but we don't have a start drag yet. So we're going to add an event here for the crafting, and we're going to have an event for start drag. And the first thing we're going to do is go to the system actions, and we're going to no, that's wrong. It's not a system action, it's an action for the crafting, and it is called move to layer. And we're going to have a layer. We can add a layer number, which would be 5 in this case, but I'm not fond of using layer numbers, because before you know it, you're starting to add layers and you didn't take into account the layer numbering. Instead, we're going to do the layer name, and we're calling it the drag layer. So when we start dragging the crafting item, we move it to the drag layer, and when we stop dragging it, we're going to move it back to the content. So let's see what that looks like. Let's select the spell book here, start dragging, and we see what it does. That's great. So now it's on top of everything, and that's exactly what we want. So the next thing that bugs me a little bit is once I drop this, if I drop it to the correct location, there's no problem, because then it really nicely snaps into place. But whenever I drop it somewhere else on a wrong location, like here, or really somewhere else on the book, or on the layout, then it just sticks there, and that's not what we want. Actually, what we wanted to do at that time is we want to move back to its original place right there. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So in order to do that, we're going to retain the original X and Y position of the crafting item whenever we start dragging. And if we let go and it appears that it's not snapping into place somehow, then we're going to tween it back to exactly that location. So the first thing I'm going to do here is go to the crafting interface here and go and select the crafting family, and then we can see that we don't have the original X and Y positions docked here. So in order to accomplish this, it's very easy. We just add another family variable and we call it original X and original Y. That's it. That's all we need to do. And whenever we start dragging, we're going to set a value of the crafting, saying, okay, not a system, no, wrong, crafting, set value, original X being crafting.x, and let's copy paste that, and the original Y is the crafting.y. So now we've retained the original X and Y on start of the drag movement. I'm just going to do this as the first one. And now let's see. When we drag and we pick a crafting ingredient box, if we're overlapping a crafting ingredient box and this crafting ingredient box, the content of it is the object type we are dragging, then we're setting that position. So there's two conditions playing here. One for this and one for this. In both cases, when one of those things is not accomplished, we need to tween it back. So the first thing we need to do is press the X on the keyboard here for the else branch. And then we're going to go to crafting, and it appears that the crafting family doesn't have tween yet. So yet again, click crafting here and we only see drag drop, which is not so good. We pick the family behaviors and we go to tween. So now we have the tween behavior, which means that here in this area we can go to crafting and we can use tween, and we need to use the tween to properties because we are going to set the position, which is comprised out of two properties, namely the X and the Y coordinate. So that means we can use this position. Let's give it a tag, crafting move back, for example. So the end X and Y, of course, is the crafting original X and the crafting original Y we just saved. And we're going to do that pretty quick, like in 0.1 seconds, without an ease, and of course no destroying or looping or ping-ponging. And whenever we're not overlapping a crafting ingredient box, so we also need an else branch here, we're going to do exactly the same thing, just copy paste that. So let's see what that looks like. Pick some energetics block here, pick the empty scroll, and drag it here, pop, and it goes back into place. Perfect. If we go too fast, can't reproduce that. Okay, so that works pretty good. Now, the next thing that bugs me a little bit is if we drag this over and we drop this here, that means we get nothing right here. And we get empty scroll. So what I want to do is whenever I start dragging this here, I want to leave like a little shadow of it behind. So that indicates that there used to be an empty scroll right here. Something like that, so like a shadow of it. And of course, that is also going to be an artifact with a very light shading, with light opacity, just like here. So let's do that. Let's go here and let's go to the crafting switch selection here, where we see that whenever we are spawning the items, spawning the crafting items, we're setting the location here to scroller. We are doing that because we want to distinguish the crafting items at the left part of the book from the crafting items we spawn whenever we select a place. We select a spellbook, like right here. And so we're mouse left clicking spellbooks, and then we're also setting crafting items, and we're setting the location to preview. But these ones only have opacity 40, and we can distinguish them from the left hand side crafting items which have opacity 100 by setting the location. So what I'm going to do here is, whenever I start dragging, I'm going to spawn another crafting item exactly the same, and I'm going to spawn it at exactly the same location, and we're going to have a location instance variable set to something else. So let's do that. So when I start dragging, let's go to the dragging interface again here. Start drag. What we're going to do is we're going to start and create a shadow crafting item. But we're going to have a problem here, because we're dragging a crafting item, and if we're going to be creating another crafting item here inside this event, construct is not going to know what we're referencing. Are we referencing the thing we are dragging, or are we referencing the thing we are creating? There's a really simple solution to that. We actually just need a function that does that, and we need to call that function right here. So let's create that function. We click right here and we add a function. And the thing, what we do then is we call it create crafting shadow, for example. And this is also in the category crafting station. And then we need a couple of parameters. We need to know which object type, what are we going to creating a shadow of, and at which location are we going to do that. So therefore we need 3 parameters, of course. I press the P for parameter and I say var object type, which is a string. Another one is var x, which is a number, and another one is var y, which is also a number. So I create a new sub-event, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an object, choose an object here, and what we're going to do, we're going to create an object by name, of course. What are we going to create? The object type we're making here, that we are creating it on the content, on the var x, and on the var y. And once we did that, we can pick last created crafting, and then we say crafting set opacity to, like, again 40, for example, something like that. So we did that, and now we're going to do something essential, namely we're going to also have a set value, and we're going to set the location of the crafting to shadow, something like that. Great. What we're going to do then, when we start dragging, we're going to call that function, functions, create crafting shadow of what? Of the crafting.object type, of course, of the crafting.x, of course, and of the crafting.y. That's it. So let's try that. Crafting station. This one here. And there we have it. Tough. Tough. But I think, see, it's getting darker and darker. And I know why that is. That is because that every time we start a drag operation, this shadow is being created, essentially. So there are, in the meantime, as I've dragged it like 15 times, there are 15 of those shadows being created, and that's not what I want. We need to, when we drop the item, we need to clear that shadow again. So the only thing we need to do here is again go to the drop, and then we need to pick all the craftings with what did I call it? With location shadow, and I need to destroy them. But yet again here, when I pick all of the craftings, construct is not going to know what he's going to have to destroy, the picked ones or the one we are dragging here. So yet again here we need another function, and let's call that clear crafting shadows. Category is crafting station, of course. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick all, not pick by evaluate. What are we going to pick? Crafting, where the crafting dot location equals shadow. And for all of these, we're going to say crafting destroy. And of course, when drag and dropping, we're going to functions clear crafting shadows. That's it. And there's a little thing that bugs me here. See, the crafting shadow is going away just before this item is dropped onto it. Actually, it should go away just after it just dropped onto it. So I'm going to make a little change. Instead of doing this at drag drop, what we're going to do is we're going to do it after this tween. So in the crafting logic, we're going to have another event, and we're going to see on tween finished, crafting move back is the tag, I believe. Crafting move back. When this is finished, at that time we're going to clear the crafting shadow. So I'm cutting this function here and we're pasting this function there. So let's do that. See what it looks like. Pick the energetics book this time. Pick the empty scroll. That's it. That's exactly what we want. So this is the next annoying thing. Now we've dropped it here, and we see this little worm here. We've got no more worm to drag, and yet we can drag that shadow around. We can't drag that shadow around. See, that's going to create some strange effects. So in order to fix that, it's very easy to fix that by just going to the create crafting shadow function, and from the crafting we disable the drag drop. That's it. So let's see what that looks like. The worm, it's not a worm in here, this one. We can't do that. Easy. So, great. Now we've created these crafting shadows, and it's a nice drag and drop interface, and it nicely goes back. This is yet another little bug. Well, let's fix that. When we drag it out, it's going back to this location here. And the reason why it does that is because when we start dragging it here, the original X and Y is reset to this instead of this X and Y. So let's try and reproduce that. So we're going to start by dragging here. So the X and Y position right now of this dragging crafting item is going to be right here somewhere. And when we drop it, it's going back to there. Great. But now, what happens now is when we drop it here, and we start dragging again, the X and Y originals are being dropped. Here is this X and Y here. So if we drag it outside, it's going back there. And of course, on drag, when the one between ends, all of the shadows disappear, so this one disappears. So what I wanted to do is actually, I wanted to retain the X and Y, so if we drag it out, it's not going back there, it's going back there again. So that's pretty easy to do, because we are retaining this X and Y here, only because we are now always setting the X and Y, not conditionally. So what we're going to do is we're going to have another condition, and we're going to say if the crafting is overlapping another object, being the crafting ingredient box, and if it's only if it's not overlapping, that's we're going to infer that only if it's not overlapping that, we are going to do that. And let's just do the stuff behind that. So if we're not doing overlapping, then we set the original X and Y. So that means that whenever we start to drag from the right hand side, from over the crafting ingredient box, the X and Y won't be overwritten. And whenever we move it back, it will be to the original X and Y back there. Okay. Okay. Great. All right. That's exactly what we want. Okay, that's great. So far for this part of creating the crafting interface. I hope you liked it. As always, please like, please subscribe if you want the full source code of this project. Just support me on my Patreon page. The link is in the description. Bye bye.